feeling guilty isn't the same as being guilty. It feels like you are guilty, but you're not guilty. We are human beings. We will make mistakes. Forgive yourself.
I wash my hands and check the lock. I Google symptoms round the clock. Intrusive thoughts inside my head. Google says I'm dead.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the podcast. Okay, so this week I've got to fill you in. My sister Laura went to see a psychic medium. Call it woo-woo, all you like, but we love it. And this lady was the best psychic that she's ever seen. And Laura and I have seen a few actually. And you know Rosie, she's totally into it. And this lady spoke about my back injury. All Laura said was, my sister's had a back injury. Can you tell me a little bit more about it? And this lady was like, she's really worried about her heel at the moment. And I've not told anybody that I've completely lost feeling in my heel because I'm sick of saying it, to be honest. I'm sick of moaning. And then she said, you know, your sister is far stronger mentally than she is physically at the moment, and she's getting very impatient. And I'm like, yeah, I'm really impatient. I'm about fucking done with this. And then she said she's going to have to seek a specialist physio. She's going to recover, but it's not going to be on her timeline. And I'm one impatient bitch, so I cannot be fucked to wait any longer, but I'm going to have to because the psychic has told me. But what is crazy is that she said, oh, your grandfather is shouting at the men who dismissed your sister. The nerve has been compressed for too long. And Laura hadn't even said anything. Like, I don't even think Laura gave her last name, so I don't feel like this medium lady could have really known who I was and my story. Unless she did, and she Googled everything. She was surprised that I've been walking around for so long, or limping, with such a substantial injury that hasn't been treated quicker. I just felt like that was the validation I needed. In this episode, I was going to focus on sexual OCD, but I feel like we covered a lot of that in episode 5. So I thought it might be worth focusing on the guilt trap that OCD creates, because for me, guilt was one of the worst things that OCD produced as a byproduct of having OCD, and one of the hardest things that I had to deal with at the time. And, you know, I still do. So I feel like people who get really caught up in their own thoughts and their own fears, they punish themselves, you know, and carrying guilt is really heavy. So I thought, well, why not talk about that for a little while and how that kind of like filters into the way that you live your life. But before we get into the deep stuff, I was making a list the other day of all the things that I have done in life that were actually OCD that I didn't realise at the time were OCD. So the other day I was like, oh, I've got a bit of free time. That never happens. How can I actually, you know, really make use of that time and have some time for me to like wind down and relax? And I was like, I'll play Planet Coaster. It's my favourite game. I love it because I can build things. I find it quite cathartic, a little therapeutic, and I really enjoy it. And it reminds me of when I used to play The Sims, and I love The Sims. I just love it. And I remember I was like, 16, 17, and I was, you know, in my little prison of a room, not really doing much. I'm playing The Sims. And I remember I used to spend so much time deleting the games that I'd made and starting again. And this is one of my main problems with everything, actually, whether it's the art that I create, the Sims games that I do, the Planet Coaster designs that I make. I always have to start again because just the one little thing, if it just goes wrong or I'm not loving it or I've got a feeling of, no, I have to start again. So with The Sims, it started just like rebuilding the house. And I'd be like, no, I've built this house, but now I've got to rebuild it because I don't like it. And I was like, okay, that's fine. I'll just rebuild my family because even though I spent like hours creating them, I just don't like them anymore. So I'm just going to do that. And then I was like, I'll just delete the neighborhood because if I start that again, that's a totally fresh, clean slate. And then it escalated into, I'll just uninstall the game and reinstall it. And then that's fresh enough. Then it escalated to, I'll just clean my bedroom. And I'll just tidy up my desk so that when I reinstall the game and start again, it's a completely like clean, fresh slate. Then I was like, well, I'll just hoover my room and put my clothes away and reorganize my wardrobe so that I can start again and it'll all be nice and clean. And it used to take me a very long time, honestly, to ever get to the position where I'd ever be happy enough to play. And the same thing happened with Planet Coaster. It took me 9 months and this is like a few years ago, so when I was like an adult, it took me 9 or 10 months to build a theme park that I was really happy with. until I opened it. And then I opened it and the public came in and like trash was everywhere. And some people vomited after my rides. And someone vandalized a bench that I was very upset about. So I stopped playing and I haven't revisited it since. And the other day when I was like, oh, I'll just play Planet Coaster, I was like, no, I can't. Someone broke my bench. And then I started remembering all the things that I was upset about that I thought was like a bit of a personal attack, but it was actually OCD. Like when I studied fine art at university, I did that for a while at degree level until I realised my OCD was too bad for me to carry on with art, which is a real shame because I'm good at art. I love art. I love the culture of art. I love the art circle clique. That's bullshit and cringe. I love it. I love it. And I was doing fine art and we had our sketchbooks and our workbooks and we had to like make a log of, you know, our thoughts and, you know, our progression with our sketching and, you know. And I was like, well, I know I'm going to get a good mark for this project because I had these Moleskine sketchbook and workbooks, right? And I made sure that all of my writing was absolutely perfect. There was no mistakes, no spelling errors, no crossing out. It was perfect. The margins were perfect. The handwriting was perfect. Everything was stuck in at 90-degree angle. It was perfect, right? So I got like a C or something and I was like, what the fuck do you call this? I tried so hard. I started again so many times to get this absolutely visually, aesthetically perfect. What's your problem? And they were like, but I can't see any of your brain work, your you know, rubbing out, starting again, your progression. I can't see any of the fresh energy, mistakes that you made and the things that you learned and, you know, your journey from A to B. We can't see it. This is just writing that looks like it's perfect, but it doesn't look like it's authentic. It doesn't look like you've been on this journey of, you know, starting in one place and ending up in the other. And I was like, fuck you, I quit. So I quit my degree and I started again doing film. And I don't know whether it was just because film was easier to make and I didn't have to necessarily be perfect. It was easier to be happy and satisfied when I did my film stuff. But I was thinking the other day, God, if I'd have just rubbed some shit out, you know, wiped my ass with my paper, stuck it on a sketchbook and been like, yeah, this is my natural progression of my bullshit work, they would have been like, you've got a first class honours. And I'd have been like, okay, what the hell? But yeah, you know, OCD cost me a degree in fine art is what I'm saying. I mean, I'm not saying that I'm unhappy it happened because I'm really happy I got first class honours in film and screen media. But it's funny, isn't it? The life you could have lived without OCD. You know, maybe, I don't know. It brings up a question of, would I have been happier doing fine arts? And it's funny because this psychic that Laura spoke to, she said we all have life paths and she could see the ones that Laura didn't take and they really rung true. One in law, one in comedy on a stage. Laura used to do really amazing drama and she's really funny. My sister's really funny. It made me think of all the life paths I could have taken but didn't, whether it's because I chose not to or because OCD stopped me. But it was just food for thought. I thought that was quite funny. And then I remembered when I was at school, before my conscious OCD kicked in, I used to get up at 6:30 every day and I used to wash my hair 3 times in one go. So I'd wash it, I'd rinse it, I'd wash it, I'd rinse it, I'd wash it, I'd rinse it. I felt like I had to do that to have a good day at school. There's a bird trying to get into my house. I wonder if it's my granddad. And then I was also like, oh my God, I remember I would feel so bad at school if my hair wasn't put up in a ponytail perfectly, like absolutely perfectly. I never thought it was OCD. I was like, this is just like, it's normal. But it used to really bother me. And I'd be on the bus thinking, oh my God, there's one strand of hair out of place. My day is fucked. How did I not know I had OCD? This is the thing, like, how do we not realise? But because I didn't know what OCD was, I didn't realise. And I was like, this is just the way I live my life. This is me. I'm so quirky. Right, let's talk about guilt then. Guilt. It's the guilt that never expires, isn't it, with OCD? It's like a subscription to guilt. The apologising, confessing. Oh man, confessing was my biggest one. I'd always be like confessing religiously. And I'm not even spiritual, but I think the fear of, but what if there is a God who likes to punish? I will just confess everything every night so he knows the game. He knows I'm a good person. Confessing, that was my biggest guilt trap. And I guess seeking reassurance is also a way to kind of alleviate the guilt. And replaying events. I replayed loads of events. That's what I used to do. The memory police would kick in with my guilt, because once I had solved one guilt trap, I'd be lured into another one. And this is huge. OCD loves old memories. Remember that joke you made in 2013 that didn't land? Yeah, fuck, I do. I do remember it. What if everyone hated you? Or hates you? What if you've forgotten the worst bit? That's the one for me. I'll replay memories, or I used to go through old scenarios, and then I think, oh, what if my memory isn't strong enough to remember the key points that I should feel guilty about? Therefore, why don't I just feel guilty about them anyway, even if I don't know if they exist? So it's this constant battle of false memory OCD versus what actually happened versus am I just wasting my time thinking and thinking and thinking? But in my opinion, good people don't need proof that they're good. People without OCD don't wake up trying to collect evidence that they're decent, But OCD, it turns morality into homework. It holds you at an impossible standard. And I don't think this is something people talk about enough, because OCD doesn't ask you to be good. It asks you to be perfectly honest, perfectly kind, perfectly loyal, perfectly moral, perfectly certain. And the bar keeps moving. So once you've cleared one test, there's always going to be another one. Guilt, it becomes the compulsion. And that's the twist. People think guilt's a symptom, but sometimes it's the actual ritual, and you keep returning to it because if you stop feeling guilty, does that mean I don't care? And then people intentionally keep themselves feeling awful because you almost don't want to heal from the guilt, because then you think, but does that mean I don't care? It's such a fucking mind fuck. And then recovery feels immoral, learning how to tolerate guilt without earning relief. It boggles the mind, doesn't it, to imagine people exist without a conscience. And I was thinking about this the other day. I was thinking, how can people commit such terrible acts of violence or corruption or murder and actually not feel a shred of guilt? Why do some people have a conscience and some people don't? What is conscience? What is it? Like, it's nothing physical, it's nothing material. It is a feeling, right? And is it a feeling of fear? Are we scared of something we don't know exists? A bigger power, a higher judgment, perhaps. Another place that we're going to end up after death. A judgment day. Are all these things ingrained into us from, religious influence? Whether we grew up in a religious household or not, do these things affect us in a way where OCD people take it very literally, even if they wouldn't necessarily subscribe to a certain religion? OCD puts you on trial every single day. And the worst prison I ever lived in, it wasn't actually fear, it was guilt. The fear was terrible, I'm not going to lie. It's the worst feeling in the world, the panic, the anxiety. But the guilt, that lasted longer than the fear. And that was the thing that made me live in my own prison, because I felt like I wasn't worthy, And I suppose recovery can feel like becoming a worse person in a sense. And that's why it's so difficult when you've got OCD, because you think that you don't deserve to recover from it. Feeling guilty isn't the same as being guilty. It feels like you are guilty, but you're not guilty. It's not the same thing. I spent years trying to be a good person and feeling like one intrusive thought cancelled out, years of being morally great. I always thought if I could balance the scales, a bit like Angel on Buffy, who obviously killed horrendously for 100 years or whatever, and then he got his soul and then decided to try and balance out the scale by doing good. But I thought, well, okay, yes, I'm impressionable and I believe that the Buffyverse is very real. But also, is that something that one can necessarily achieve? Surely if one commits murder or something as bad as that, there is nothing you can do to balance that scale. So I was like, is there even any point in trying to do acts of good to balance out all my acts of bad? Turns out I haven't done anything wrong. But at the time I was like, well, I'm a terrible person, I'm awful. All these thoughts alone are terrible. I can't go on. I need to do something good. But then I was like, well, what can I do? And that was also another tiring mental compulsion. Over the years, I've had to tried to escape the guilt trap. And what I've learned is that you don't break the guilt trap by proving you're innocent. You break it by changing your relationship with guilt. And you've got to recognize that guilt isn't the evidence. And one of OCD's biggest tricks is making guilt feel like the proof. I feel guilty, therefore I must have done something wrong. But emotions aren't facts, and they feel really real, and it's really difficult to separate them both. But they're not facts. And you can feel guilty because you have OCD, you're anxious, you're exhausted, or your brain is sounding a false alarm. You've got to stop treating guilt like an emergency. And, most of us react to guilt immediately. We analyze, we confess, we Google, we'll ask a member of our family, or we'll replay things from our past or conversations we've had. And every time we do that, we accidentally teach our little OCD brains, good catch. Next time you feel guilty, sound the alarm even louder. The goal needs to become, I'm noticing guilt, but I'm not going to solve it. And, that's so uncomfortable, isn't it? It's really uncomfortable. I hate it. And we need to let guilt exist without answering it. Like, we don't owe it an explanation. And I know that seems mental, but we don't owe it an explanation. I think the hardest thing with OCD is when you feel a feeling, it's so pronounced that it's really difficult to separate what's fact and what isn't. The fear, the guilt, it's all so overwhelming at one time, and you feel completely absorbed and swallowed whole. And it's really difficult to notice that there are two different things going on here. Like, you feel guilt, but it doesn't mean that you're guilty. We need to accept uncertainty about our characters. It's actually surprisingly freeing. Nobody has 100% certainty that they're a good person. Everybody has shades of grey inside them. Not everything is black and white. Judge yourself by your values and not your feelings. Ask yourself, am I trying to be kind? Am I trying to be honest? Am I trying to live in line with the person I want to be? Maybe that's enough. You don't need to feel like a good person every day to act like one. I don't have to constantly prove to myself that I'm a really good person. I can just do my best, and that is enough. Because, most people don't wake up every day and think, what can I do to prove that I'm this amazing, pure soul? Maybe we're all human, and humans make mistakes, and that's okay, because how can we evolve? I mean, this is what I'm telling my children. Mistakes are fine to make. There is no way we can learn and grow without making mistakes. Am I going to sit there and say, Ziggy, Rocky, you suck, punish yourself, you made a mistake? No, I'm not going to do that. Because what's the point in that? How are we supposed to know what to do next time, or how to grow, how to evolve, how to live? We are human beings. We will make mistakes. Forgive yourself and resist the urge to collect evidence. There are things in my life that I have done and wish I hadn't, or I wish I'd acted differently, but isn't that the same for everybody living in this world? Only OCD sufferers like me, and possibly you, we will punish ourselves to make sure it doesn't happen again, or to make sure that we've paid the price, and it's like, God, fucking hell. If my best friend came up to me and said, I did this, I did that, or whatever, and I feel terrible, I'd be like, get a fucking grip. Get over it. And I do have friends who have OCD, and I do talk to them like that sometimes. You know what? It's not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes, my mum used to just be like, get over it. And I'd be like, do you know what? I will. So here are my closing thoughts, you guys. Are you ready for this? This is actually quite poetic. I spent years believing guilt made me safe. And I thought if I felt bad enough, I'd never become the person I feared. But over the years, I think I've realised that guilt isn't a moral compass. It is just an emotion. And my OCD is brilliant at forging fake ones, honestly. And you don't become a good person by proving it every day. You become one by living your life. And that's what I really want to encourage people to do. Live your life. Just live your life. Don't let it stop you from doing the things that you want to do, the things that bring you joy. Don't not do them because you feel guilty for some bullshit that doesn't matter. Okay? Because it is bullshit that doesn't matter. And if it's real event OCD and not an intrusive thought, I don't want you to sit here and panic, because we're going to do a whole episode on real event OCD and how it works in exactly the same way. It doesn't mean you have anything more to worry about. So hang in there. Have a good week, you guys. Go and see a psychic medium. Remember, you don't have to prove you're a good person to deserve a good life. I will see you all next week. Don't forget to leave a review and follow the podcast wherever you're listening. And I will see you soon. Bye, guys.